I'll never apologize for the United States of America. Ever. I don't care what the facts are.
Why are we going to sit down and talk to these quote-unquote moderate rebels?
Who are the truly moderate rebels?
The search for the moderate rebel. Do these moderate rebels exist?
Moderate
Rebels.
You are listening to Moderate Rebels. I'm Ben Norton here with Max Blumenthal. Today we're here with Kim Ives from Haiti Liberte, and we're going to talk about neocolonialism, the modern history of Haiti, U.S. imperialism in Haiti, the aftermath of the earthquake, the coup, and many related issues. So this will kind of be like an intro crash course into modern Haitian history and politics. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Thank you, Ben.
Going back a little bit, I think for listeners and viewers who don't really know much about the history of Haiti. I mean, we don't have time to get into that, and that's a whole other topic. I think we should get a little more into granular details here. But I think first, of course, there's the 1791 revolution. This is 2 years after the French Revolution. Haiti is one of the first countries to abolish slavery, to overthrow a colonial regime. And I think it's fair to say that since then, French and American imperialism have been viciously oppressing this country. Thomas Jefferson, after the revolution, imposed an embargo on Haiti, trying to economically strangulate the country. But fast forwarding, of course, that's a big 200 years to skip. But I think for listeners and viewers who don't know much about Haiti, they might have heard of the coup in 2004 against Aristide. So I'm wondering, to provide more context for the rest of our discussion here, I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit more about who Aristide is. This is the first democratically elected president in Haitian history. A lot of Americans don't realize that the first democratically elected president was not until the 1990s, actually. There's decades of military dictatorship during the Cold War, and that leads us to Aristide, who in 2004 is literally kidnapped by the United States, put in a plane and flown to the Central African Republic. So can you just talk about some of that modern history?
Well, it was actually first Central African Republic, then back to Jamaica, and then Condoleezza Rice got on the phone with P.J. Patterson in Jamaica and said, you got to get that sucker out of there, and they had to fly him to South Africa, but they had to wait for Thabo Mbeki to be re-elected before they could do so. So it was a crazy situation.
But it also shows that it was the U.S. that was calling the shots. So,
Totally.
So who is Aristide? For folks who don't know anything about Haitian history, what is the Lavalas movement, and how is the U.S., as Americans here in the continental U.S., how is our government playing a role in preventing Haitian independence and self-determination?
Well, just to skip back to your historical thumbnail, Haiti, as I like to say, is always a vanguard country. It's always an ice-breaking country. They were the first and last successful slave revolution, and they really were the touchstone for all the revolutions on the continent. They were the ones who gave Bolivar his boats and printing presses and guns and soldiers to liberate the continent. And if you look in the flags of all the northern South American countries, you'll see the Haitian flag is in there. The red and blue, the yellow is for the Latins. So that is the historical role Haiti's played. And so all Haitians walk in glory for what their ancestors did. And that means that in 1986, when Jean-Claude Duvaliers, Baby Doc, fell, there was the bottle had been bottled up for that long, and so there was just a huge explosion of popular and democratic sentiment. And the U.S. thought they were going to do what they usually do, buy the elections, just like they do here. And they had their World Bank economist, a guy called Marc Bazin, already in the wings. They put him there, and they figured out this is a piece of cake. It's Haiti. It's not even going to cost that much. That was a very, as they say in Creole, bien compté, mal calculé. They counted well, but they calculated badly. And so now there was this parish priest who got the backing of a Palestinian Haitian-Palestinian businessman called Antoine Ismarie, put up $500,000 and said, you go up against Marc Bazin, who had a war chest of $36 million. And so outgunned 72-1, Aristide was winning with 68% of the vote when they stopped counting, and he was pulling away. So this was, once again, the first time in modern Latin American history that the U.S. election engineering that was being carried out in Latin America was foiled. And this was something that Hugo Chavez looked at, and Evo Morales, and Correa, and all the others. And they said, damn, we can do that too. And it started, just like in 1804, a wave of revolutions, political revolutions across the continent. So this has been the role of Haiti, and this was why when Chavez gave Petrocaribe, he said, we owe Haiti that historic debt for what the Haitian people brought to us, brought to Bolivar, and brought to all Latin America.
And Kim, I guess it's been a long time since I interviewed you. I think it was back in 2004 for a piece I did for Salon called The Other Regime Change, about the U.S.-led coup in Haiti that removed Jean-Bertrand Aristide and was just a full-scale attack on the Lavalas movement and resulted in really whittling away Haiti's independence. Now we're at a point where there are some significant protests that are even going to take place in the U.S. around the Petrocaribe Fund. And you wrote a piece recently called The Roots of Haiti's Movement for Petrocaribe Transparency. Tell us about the significance of these protests and how they represent a new phase of resistance in Haiti.
Well, a lot of the problem that people always raise when you talk about getting outside of the orbit of Washington or any of the imperialist countries is that they're going to strangle you economically. And in 2005, Hugo Chavez thought up a solution to this. He said, we're going to help you by giving you the capital, which was stolen from you, in the form of oil. And the Petrocaribe program was one which he set up with 17 different countries. Haiti was a little late comer. That was in 2007. They went and offered it to one of the coup regime officials, and they rejected it because Washington had told them they disapproved. And but when René Préval came in 2006, the first thing he did, the very day of his inauguration, was pen the accord with Caracas with a guy called Rangel, the vice president, Vicente Rangel. And the result was Washington went into overdrive with the oil companies to try to torpedo the deal.
And Petrocaribe was basically loans on a very favorable rate to Haiti to fund social programs, which Washington opposed.
Correct, yeah. They provided Haiti with it was supposed to be about 14 to 17,000 barrels a day of oil. It ended up being about 20,000 barrels a day. And the state would sell that. They had to pay Venezuela 60% of that, and 40% they could keep and put in what they called the Petrocaribe Fund, which rapidly grew. You're selling 20,000 barrels of oil a day. And that money, Préval was very careful to pay it back on time and to use it. But what essentially happened was the earthquake in 2010 offered the U.S. a golden opportunity to make a regime change dressed up as humanitarian and disaster aid. They brought in Bill Clinton. He became the commissar, the consul of Haiti, and essentially decided how the $13 billion of aid that was raised worldwide would be spent. The Préval government was not happy with Bill Clinton and with this state of affairs, but Préval did more of a passive resistance. He would sort of walk out of meetings when Bill Clinton would get up to speak, that sort of thing, rather than denouncing him. And Washington basically worked to get his party out of leadership. And they brought in this other group, which is still in power, called the Haitian Bald-Headed Party, headed by
Mickey.
Michel Martelly. Yeah, Sweet Mickey.
Sweet Mickey, he was like a Duvaliers kind of Tonton Macoute affiliated guy.
Exactly.
He was like a singer?
Yes, he had
kind
been
of like a
compa
Trump
singer.
type character.
Yeah, he was a very body. What's the word? He was quite vulgar in his act, pulling down his pants and wearing brassieres and, kind of strange, but in a way, very puritanical Haiti. People would laugh and think this was very funny and very comic, and he had name recognition. A lot of artists have this. They just have name recognition, and so he got some votes with that. I would have thought he wouldn't have gotten very far, but he did get some votes, and then Hillary Clinton came down, read René Préval, the Riot Act, right as the Arab Spring was kicking off in January 2011, and Préval basically bent over and let them put Mickey in as president, and he spent his 5 years, and now we're in his protege's term, Jovenel Moïse.
Okay, and Ben, you during the earthquake donated your life savings to Wyclef, isn't that? I gave all my money to Proswell, the third Fuji, but and so would you say that Bill Clinton kind of emerging as the imposing himself on behalf of Washington as kind of the colonial governor via Little Mickey was kind of the nail in the coffin. It really intensified this process of severing the relationship or the solidarity with Venezuela, where we see now sanctions being imposed by the Trump administration, and Petrocaribe funds have basically either dried up or disappeared through corruption. So, following the historical trajectory, first you had a coup that removed Aristide. These were figures trained at the School of the Americas who came into power. Jesse Helms was cheerleading it through the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. There were big protests. Ron Dellums and the Black Congressional Caucus chained themselves to the White House. Bill Clinton agrees, okay, we'll bring Aristide back on the condition that he basically agrees to all these free trade agreements. And now Haiti, which has historically produced its own rice, has to buy rice from Louisiana, right?
Arkansas.
Okay, I was one state off.
But yeah, no, you were right. Louisiana too, but Arkansas is the big part of it.
Okay, well that's sort of remarkable, and that was what was done to Jamaica as well.
Yeah.
So Aristide returns less independent than before, and then they start turning the screws the way the National Endowment for Democracy does it, with the soft coup, the kind of color revolution style, and arming the rebels and everything. So Aristide is removed once and for all, and then you talked about some of the process leading up to the earthquake. You can add some detail to the framework that I just described, but explain how Bill Clinton imposing himself as the kind of colonial governor and bringing in the NGO sector and Red Cross really set the stage for what's happening today, where solidarity with Venezuela has basically been severed by the Trump administration with sanctions. Petrocaribe funds have either dried up or disappeared, and you have this protest movement.
Right. Well, this gift that Hugo Chavez gave the Haitian people has basically been taken back through this soft power, as you aptly call it, of Bill Clinton. So this soft power, because Bill Clinton's mission, if we could say, is to convince the world that you can do good doing well, right? And basically capitalism is going to save humanity. And so he came in and took control of this earthquake fund, and instead of putting it into things that the Haitian people were asking, like let's have agriculture so we can begin to feed ourselves again, he said, no, you need a big sweatshop up in the north of Haiti, far from the earthquake zone, where you can make more, clothing and electronics for us, with our Korean friends, my Korean friends, and Mexican friends, and whoever, my millionaire coterie is. So that's what basically came into place, plus a couple of luxury hotels. So the businessmen who were coming there, that was their big complaint. They never had anywhere they could really stay. They needed a Marriott, they needed a Hilton, they needed a $300 a night hotel room. So
So they can do good.
Yeah, so they could do good. And among the good is, taking like the Red Cross, which got whatever it was, 500 million, was it? I forget the amount. And
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. This is remarkable. So in 2010, for background here, for those who don't know, in 2010, Haiti has a horrific earthquake. And for those who don't know, just for context, we need to understand, at least 100,000 people die because of this earthquake. And that's a conservative estimate.
Let me stop.
The government said probably 300,000.
The government said 312,000, but in fact, and this is a very interesting point, it's almost counterintuitive, there were only between 60 and 80,000 people who died. But part of this NGO game is to inflate everything. Oh, there's a rape epidemic. Oh, 300,000 people died. Oh my God, there are orphans everywhere. And Amber Alert. Right, Amber Alert. And it's all baloney. And it's all the NGO economy is the 8th largest economy in the world. And most of these people are charlatans. And we saw that with Oxfam, which is supposed to be the good NGO. They put out that inequality index, et cetera. They're supposed to be sort of enlightened and
Oxfam,
slightly anti-imperialist. But no.
Oxfam officials were sexually abusing Haitians, and talk more about that.
Well, staff, yeah. There was one, the leader of the team, whatever it was, had, I think, a 15-year-old girlfriend or something. I mean, he was 63, so it was a little. And then they would have wild parties at their house with, naked girls running around and all kinds of things. So all this was sort of swept under the rug in a report. The report was swept under the rug, and then it came out. So everybody had to resign, and it was a big. But this is, in a way, as I said, actually with the Real News Network, a diversion, because the harm that the NGOs is doing is so much worse than some, tawdry parties and
and let's talk more about that.
Around.
You mentioned the Red Cross. This is, of course, just the tip of the iceberg. But after the 2010 earthquake, which decimated the country, David Harvey, the geographer and economist, used the phrase "a class quake." That if there were, more infrastructure, more economic development, if this was not a, still colonized country, that not nearly as many people would have died. The damage wouldn't have been as bad. That it was not just an earthquake; it was a class quake. But so after this natural disaster or unnatural disaster, of course, the NGO complex, the NGO industrial complex, that's part of the U.S. and part of this whole liberal imperialist framework.
The media NGO complex.
Exactly. They're all. So the idea is we have to do something, and the Clinton Global Initiative gets on board, but also so does the Red Cross. And of course, very few people at that time were like, oh, well, the Red Cross is, they're nefarious tools of imperialism. But the Red Cross goes on an unprecedented fundraising spree, raising a record $500 million. And according to media reports I saw, that's actually probably the largest fundraiser for humanitarian disaster ever. $500 million, $500 million.
And they built 6 houses.
And with that money, they build 6 houses.
Yeah.
And
it took them about 6 years, I think. It was extraordinary. No, it was a feeding frenzy. The NGO sharks and this, I could call them a sort of mafia, a clown mafia group, which has got the power. They were, feeding their frenzy, but a lot of this was being paid for by Venezuela. And this was the irony, because actually, we here at Haiti Liberte, we often have VIP speakers like you, Max, and we had the Venezuelan ambassador here. And this is a very pro-Cuba, pro-Venezuela paper, but the audience lit into him and said, "Why are you giving money to Sweet Mickey?" And he said, "Listen, don't talk to. We're not like the U.S. When we don't like somebody politically, we don't yank the money. We gave it to the Haitian state. If you have a problem with that state, it's up to you to change it."
It was the same in Nicaragua. They offered Enrique Bolaños the ALBA money, and this was the U.S.-backed technocrat, but he couldn't take it because the U.S. had him by the balls. So, but that just the Venezuelan way. It was just, we have an obligation to Nicaragua.
Exactly. So this was the terrible irony is no good deed will go unpunished. After possibly poisoning Hugo Chavez, they're now dismantling his legacy. of basically the Petrocaribe, which was such an internationalist gesture. I mean, it was unprecedented. And as actually Ramsey Clark said it at his funeral, he should be on a stature with Bolivar in Latin American history, if not higher.
And so how are Trump's sanctions on Venezuela and also global oil prices impacting the future of Haiti, specifically around Petrocaribe?
Well, basically, the cheap oil has stopped, and we saw the IMF said, you now have to stop price supports on oil. They said this back at the beginning of the year of 2018, and it went into effect on July 6th. Now, they made a very bad calculation once again on that date, and they said, okay, we'll do it during the match between Brazil and whoever they were playing in the World Cup. Well, Brazil, which was Haiti's adoptive team, lost. And so people were mad about that, but they came out and they also saw that all the prices had gone up, in the case of kerosene, 50%, in some cases 48%, and people just went into the street and they said, that's it. And so there were 3 days of mayhem. Stores were burned, all traffic stopped, and this was a taste of what's to come. The people have been watching all of this taking back that the empire and its local clown criminal cronies are doing, and they said that's enough. And right now, this movement, to come back to where we started, of Petrocaribe is really a call for that. It's sort of inchoate right now. It's not sharpened. There's not a clear demand because obviously Jovenel Moïse, the president, he's already indicted for money laundering millions of dollars, which went into his business, which helped him come to power because he had by far the best funded campaign, even though less than 20% of the electorate went out to vote, and he got only 60-something% of that. So it was a tiny fraction of the Haitian people that actually allowed him to get into power. But this is, again, all part of this Clinton slash globalist structure that was put into place in the elections in Haiti, kind of like the Electoral College here, which makes it impossible for the Haitian people to even participate. It used to be they could just go to the local corner, register, and vote. Now they have to go back to their hometown, which many people can't afford to do. Everybody's, moving and shaking to try to survive. And so a lot of people just can't vote. They can't go to the huge voting centers and find their name on the list. So they've made voting almost impossible.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, sounds very familiar.
I blame Russia, but...
Right, yeah. Well, maybe the Russians were responsible, right. No, that was a joke, of course. Irony is that there was no democracy more vital and vibrant than the Haitian democracy of 1990-91, and it basically has been slowly, through sort of a chemo and all sorts of other low-intensity warfare, debilitated to the state it is today.
Through U.S. democracy promotion.
There you go. And that's exactly what they called it. Right after he won, they had Democracy Enhancement Campaign. Democracy Enhancement, which was basically democracy's sabotage.
After Aristide won.
Yeah, after Aristide won.
Okay.
Yeah. In 1990.
So we don't have a lot of time left, but I'm wondering if you could talk about how you think the George Bush, Barack Obama, and Trump administrations' policies have changed, if at all, on Haiti. Are they different, or are they basically the same?
Yeah, as many people have noted, Democrats, Republicans, Trumpists, they're all basically the same when it comes to foreign policy. They all have an imperial and very aggressive interventionist approach. And we see that in Venezuela today, and I see Marco Rubio openly calling for foreign intervention in Venezuela.
The OAS, the Organization of American States, an ostensibly independent organization, the U.S., by the way, USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, in its own internal documents, refers to the OAS as a pro-U.S. organization that helps counter Venezuela, Cuba, etc. But the head of the OAS just this week actually basically called for a military coup. He said that a military coup in Venezuela would be necessary to stop the humanitarian crisis, etc.
Right. Well, the OAS head has been really the
Luis Almagro.
Almagro has been one of the principal cheerleaders of a coup, and as Cuba, I think, justly calls it, it is Washington's Department of Colonial Affairs. And so I think what we see is rippling down, because the Haitian people understand very well the gesture that Hugo Chavez and the Venezuelans made to them. And so Petrocaribe, as sort of unsharpened as it is right now, and the editorial this week that was in Haiti Liberte was saying, okay, it's very good to have all these demonstrations. There was one today, September 15th in Miami. So every city, New York, Montreal, Miami, where there are Haitians, there are demos. And of course, in Haiti, it's almost every day. But right now, people are starting to come to the realization that it's a revolutionary project, because the thief is never going to arrest himself and turn himself in. It means you have to take back power, and that's the what's needed to be done now.
Talk about just briefly the protests which have been ongoing in Haiti are now going to take to the streets in Miami. Will there be any in New York? And talk about your own work with Haiti Liberte. Where can people follow it? Where can our listeners follow the situation in Haiti?
Well, I think the uprising that we see is in its early stages. Haitians, while they have they're very combustible, but they often have a hard time consolidating that combustion. That happened with Aristide, who came to power on an almost spontaneous movement, but because he couldn't get a sort of party which could defend it, make committees for defense of the revolution, or something, they were able to be removed from power twice in the course of 20 years. So, a little bit that's the problem we have now. We don't have a strong leftist party who can really respond to the situation. And that's really the role that Haiti Liberte tries to play. Here we are, three white guys talking about Haiti, but, it is humanity's gift that Haiti has brought to show what struggle can do. And so I bring what I can, having somewhat grown up in the Haitian community, to that struggle. And Haiti Liberte, that's the first line of defense, is the struggle for ideas and information, and getting good information and ideas into people's hands. So that's what we do at Haiti Liberte. It's on the internet, HaitiLiberte.com, no hyphen. And we have a newspaper which goes into all the little kiosks out here in East Flatbush and South Florida, in Haiti, of course, Montreal, Paris, wherever there are Haitians, we have the newspaper as well.
Yeah, and I would just say briefly, obviously we are three white guys talking about Haiti, but I think it's also important to understand that not only should we stand in solidarity because it's the right thing to do politically, because it's for justice, but also we as Americans can and should play an important role in fighting for solidarity with Haitians, given our government, as we've been discussing for the past half an hour, has played a key role in preventing any kind of independent self-determination. So that was a great interview, and thanks for all the information, and thanks for the work you do at Haiti Liberte.
Thanks, Ben and Max.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a pleasure, and patreon.com/moderate rebels. Support us so we can do more work like this and bring you more voices like Kim's. Thanks a lot.